we have Tara O'Rourke from Saol Beo, the founder of Saol Beo, actually, it's in existence for quite a while now, I think. And you're a wellness coach with neuroscience. One of my favorites, of course, the whole neuroscience part. And then you're a senior yoga and meditation teacher as well. And you've been in the corporate world for many, many years and stepped away and really lent into your purpose quite some time ago. And it's gone pretty great. And I've been to Tara's yoga class and meditation and all sorts, and she's amazing. So I'm really privileged that you took the time to share your wisdom with us this morning.
Thanks, Neve. Yeah, I established Saol Beo like almost 10 years ago now, so it's almost a decade. And yeah, it's flourishing in its own way. Has its challenges like everything else, but it is flourishing. Thank goodness.
Amazing, amazing. So we're really here to talk about wellness through redundancy. And again, I have to reiterate, I keep saying redundant, people are redundant. And of course, that's not what I mean. It is the role is redundant. The person is absolutely categorically never redundant. And I've said it a few times and I'm very aware. So it's old school language. And I want to be really clear. We're talking about the role is redundant. But of course, the person's in the middle of it all and they are experiencing some very challenging situations. So we're talking to the audience who might be just at risk of redundancy, their role is at risk of redundancy, and those who have maybe recently been made redundant. And I think on the initial impact, you know, all sorts of emotions can come up. You're just hearing the news, maybe it's a shock. I know Brendan, the gentleman we spoke to who was redundant, he kind of knew it was coming. For me, when I was made redundant, it was a complete shock. It came out of nowhere. So we're kind of dealing with lots of emotions all coming at the same time. So as a wellness coach, if we're looking at the immediate impact of hearing the news, maybe you'll talk to and share some of your wisdom. What would be your maybe one or two key things to do in those kind of next few hours, next few days to manage through that situation?
Yeah. So yeah, we're all individuals. That's the first thing. And I've been thinking about this a lot in life in general, how we perceive things can differ greatly, you know, depending on the individual. So our perception of things, you know, will be very unique to that individual. So firstly, to say that, so what you really don't want to be saying to somebody is, you're probably feeling this and this and this. So it's unique to the person. For some people, you know, not to underestimate, it's a big power shock to the system. There'll be fear, there'll be anxiety, there'll be financial worry, there'll be like anticipation of what's to come. For others, it might be, you know, this is my opportunity to move into that second phase of my life, or, you know, it could be, you know, welcome in some way. So bearing in mind that individuals are unique in themselves and their perception of things. However, what we come across in coaching and, you know, around that and around us as human beings are that we do feel strongly, you know, this adrenaline rush moving through us, this cortisol rush of, oh my God, this is a shock. And what causes that is, Neve, that this is something that's totally out of my control.
Right.
You know, that sense of feeling like I've no control over this, which is pretty scary and daunting. However, it's to really look at that. And the first thing I would say is, and this is like a toolkit for life, really, it's to create like almost like this clearing in the dense forest that's just suddenly there, you know, so everything is can be quite dense. You can't see through it. So how do I create this clearing where I can just have a little bit of space, where I can see things a little more clearly? And that really has to start with finding that sense of pause. So even though everything in your body, because all the limbic system is kicking in, you know, the cortisol is rushing in, even though everything in your neurochemistry is saying, I need to run, I need to fight, you know, because this is a sudden shock to my system. And that is completely understandable. It's to acknowledge that.
Right.
It's to make sure that we equip ourselves that is, you know, if that's carrying on quite a long time, it's not sustainable. So it's how do we equip ourselves with the tools, the toolkit, in order to find that sense of pause. And we know through neuroscience, through physiologic environment that we're in, that when we begin to rest and digest and find a little bit more space and that clearing in the forest, that things begin to make a little bit more sense. And we begin to realize then that this is something that's totally out of my control. It's not of my doing. It's not my fault. There's no blame. And we meet it with a real place of compassion. So first of all, it's to recognize what's happening, like
Mm,
absolutely recognize what is happening in this moment. And then how can I allow it to be there? And this is kind of around the Tara Brach practice as well of rain. How can I allow it to be there? When I investigate it a little bit more, how can I really meet that with compassion? It's totally out of my control, but what is in my control?
very important. Yeah.
That clearing in the forest very much is taking initially in simple language, how do I find that space of pause? And as John Kabat-Zinn would say, the master of mindfulness, there's many doors into the same room. So many doors into the same room in that pause. The same room being, this is the place where I can breathe. So for you, Neve, it might be, you go out for the walk with your dog, but it's an intentional awareness. I'm going out for a walk. This is my place. For me, it might be I go for a swim in the sea. I might sit in 5 minutes of meditation every day. It's something that, and this is the thing, it's the switch on to this space of pause and resting and digesting. That doesn't mean doing nothing, but it's where's that switch on into this room where I know I can find a little bit more. So rather than feeling like I'm all constricted, especially here or maybe in my gut, where can I find that sense of spaciousness?
Mm,
Allow for all of this to take place and just meet it with that acceptance and loving kindness at the same time. So
mm.
where do you find the pause? And
Okay.
as I
So,
said, it could be in a walk, it could be in a 5 minutes. So first of all, where do I find that switch to take me out of this space of overwhelm, anxiety, anticipation? And we know that the switch on is like different for everybody.
mm. So just to sum up what I've heard you say, so it's really considering what's in our control and maybe be very mindful, be very explicit in your brain. Was like, well, what's in my control right here, right now? Consider that. And the key piece following that is to take the pause. And the pause can be anything to anybody, but it's the space that allows you to take a breath. It's a very considered pause. And you
Mhm.
need that in order for sort of the adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones in your body to dissipate a little bit so
Yes.
that you can think clearer and then proceed, then move forward. But it's
Yeah.
almost impossible to move forward in the right direction, shall we say, if you don't take that pause and
Yeah.
allow yourself that time. Is that fair to
Exactly.
say?
Exactly, exactly. And here's the thing as well that, we can continue all day in this space of keep going and going and going. And when we're hit with a sudden shock like that to the system, and even if it is a positive change, there still is that anxiety, what is to come.
There's a real
But as soon as
grieving
we're hit,
process through it, isn't there? I would say.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But as soon as we're hit with that is in order for us to move from this place of doing to being, so it's moving from doing to being, we need to know where that switch on is. And that switch on it's intentional. So that's the thing, it's
Okay.
intentional. So it's
Got
like I use an example of, you're setting the table for yourself. So how do I set the table for myself for my dinner? How do I carve out this space for my 5 minute meditation practice? And it's as simple as well, Neve, and really powerful. I wouldn't underestimate this. How is my schedule looking? And I know that's kind of going into the thinking and the logical side, but really important as well, that you find that space, but how do I really carve that space out? So looking at my schedule. So somebody once said, like, show me, your priorities and, show me your schedule at the same time in your
Mm,
diary. So where do I find that time for? It's almost like this is my mental meeting time. So as you would in your job, in your current role, schedule out time to meet whoever for that meeting around whatever, you schedule that time in your diary. This is my time for my walk. And I have three pillars, Neve, that have really stood to me and to many clients that I've worked with over the years. And it's these three things. It's move. So get moving. And no matter who we are or what we are, um, or where we are, as soon as we begin to move, everything changes. So you
mm,
might, and especially on the mornings where you don't feel like moving. So get into that space of, mind, and remember it's incremental. So don't judge your progress, just do it. Even if you're not in the mood, there are the times to do it. Get out for your walk, lie on the ground, do some gentle stretches, breathe, and get that belly breath and that abdominal breath going. So move. And also really powerful is, no matter what time of year it is, it's so crucial to get the daylight into our system.
Right.
But the natural default of the brain is, either to create all of these stories, manifest these stories, or the natural default is to reach for distraction. So we need to move away from that, especially first thing in the morning to set the tone for a day. So get out moving, whatever that means for you, 5 minute, 10 minute, a longer walk, but just get that sunlight into your day. Because here's the thing around that switches on your setup for the day. So it releases that healthy chemical process in your body for your digestion, for your adrenal glands, for your endocrine system. And then come night, you're toning down everything and you're
The melatonin.
dimming down the lights. So that's the move. So make the move part of your morning. Second thing is focus. So I'm a big believer in discipline. I know it's a word that can be, not so well received, but discipline, or have, principles or rules around, there's a certain point of your day where we do need to do the work. And even if we're out of work, out of our current job, as you said, we're not redundant. The job is, but we are not redundant.
Right.
So it's carving out that time. So my recommendation generally is 2 hours, if you're not working, especially, carve out that time either to sit, write, and everything changes again. It's like retraining a muscle in the body, retraining the brain, forming new habits and things, as you know, and I know, and we're working with people. This is evidence-based. Things will change. You'll get ideas because you have this container of space that you've created and carved out. And then my third pillar is integrate and absorption at the end of the day. So do something to integrate that. And that could be, this is my time where I am phone free, distraction free. I'm going to sit, I'm going to digest my food, and I'm just going to write out a couple of things that I have to do or that I'm going to set myself to do the following day. So it's not rigid. It's becoming a little bit more unstuck though. And it's also gaining and charging that power again back into your own system and things that you can have control over. So everything will change. Those three small incremental things. And again, do not judge your progress. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
Absolutely. And I think that non-judgment is key, isn't it? You've been through, a difficult situation, probably still going through it. Allow yourself to feel the compassion. I know we had that on a couple of the other podcasts. It's allow yourself that, be kind to yourself. I think Brendan talked about. And, I think you're kind of referencing what might be termed in inverted commas, the self-care piece. I'd really love to maybe take you to what about keeping your confidence up? Because I know for a lot of people, particularly the ladies, I hear it a lot with clients that their confidence was knocked. Even if they're one of many who were chosen, they can find it a little bit difficult to kind of pick themselves up, move on, and bring the energy of, excitement, new opportunity, especially if they've been through a difficult situation through it. What would be maybe your 1, 2, 3 top tips to kind of build up your confidence and stay motivated as you move through the process, but long after that, when you're out in the market again, you've decided what your next steps are or what you'd like to try and secure for your next role. So that motivation and confidence, what would be your top tips there?
Yeah, so this kind of centers around like what we believe to be true, around our own belief system. So again, it's unique to the individual. So, and I am very much, and I've worked with lots of other people around this as well, that like staying authentic to yourself, so you do not have to be a certain way. You do not have to change who you are. The situation is the situation, it is out of your control.
Love it.
I was thinking about this as well. Like a lot of people listening in won't probably remember the 80s, but the 80s were a time of like redundancy as well and recession. But when you lost your job in the 80s, like it was really, really, dramatic. And not that it isn't now, but, jobs were really hard to come by. So it was a shock to the system. And that's probably the only job people had. Like a factory closes in a village and like the whole village is almost, wiped out with redundancies. Things have changed, things have changed and we have evolved, so we know that we are not the job. We are people who do the job,
Yeah.
so I'd say around that is it's very much around your belief system. So again, taking that time and space, and also do not isolate yourself, Neve. So when we become really separate, it's when we can suffer and run into, these obstacles.
Right.
So keeping yourself social, I mean, the brain is social, we're social beings. So connecting with like-minded people. And I'd really also say as well, don't just, hang around people your own age. There's such wisdom in, especially in older people as well, that can share these beautiful nuggets of wisdom. So if it is, really kind of, impeding you in your progress, or impeding you in your day, where you have this belief that, it's something that I did, or my confidence has been knocked, and to accept that is a real feeling. That is really hurting right now. That's a real feeling that I'm feeling. I feel totally knocked over here. So how can you really find that sense of, again, space, that
Right.
sense of compassion, meeting it head on with, this is not my doing, and actually examining that belief of maybe it is something in my head that, God, am I not good enough to do that job? Is that why I've been let go? Or, so really looking at that and looking at the evidence. And if you need somebody like a coach to support you through that, 100% recommend that too, to look at areas around that. So looking at things like, maybe I'm not good enough at that, if that is a belief or something that is impeding you, to really examine that and look at the evidence. You are good enough. You are not the sum of that job. You're totally employable. There's so much out there. It is daunting, it is scary, but that is the way it is for now. The feelings in the body are real. What we really want to work on is, and this is the thing as well, the feelings are in the body are real. They're felt by you. It's to feel into that. And sometimes even sitting with that, Neve, is difficult. So how can I really just acknowledge what is going on in the body? And for me and for many, many others, it's being mindful of it, being mindful of the feelings in the body, and meeting that with compassion and no judgment. And the whole story then, rather than this rush of, I'm not good enough, I could have done better. Why did this happen to me? The whole story changes when it meets the brain and the head. And that's what we want to slow down all of this and just investigate it a little bit more, allow it to be there. Don't try to push it away, because that's not real. We are real and we are really feeling this. And then before it is that rush to the head of, this total like over thinking and becoming, nearly like you can't see the wood from the trees.
Yeah.
I make these metaphors always with the
I know,
forest.
I love the whole woods forest thing. But actually, I think it's a great point, and it's reminded me of something even when you were talking about your pause at the beginning. If you're moving out of just being for a little while and in the pause, a really brilliant exercise, and I know you've used it loads, I use it loads in coaching, it's the success bank. So it's
Yeah.
reminding yourself of all the things that you've been successful in, and it's your definition of success, not anybody else's, all the things you've achieved, all the things you're proud of, and just write them down. There's tons, even from the smallest thing right back to, your earliest memory. And even just sitting with that from a neuroscience perspective, it's reminding your head, your heart, and your gut, your whole system, that you've been successful many, 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 many times, and that this situation is a glitch and you will move through it, to your point. And I love your metaphors for that. Absolutely. This is a point in time. We're not saying it's easy. For a lot of people, it is not easy, but you will move through it. If you allow yourself the pause, if you allow the stress hormones to dissipate a little bit in your body, and you take some of the advice that you've shared, Tara, you will move through it.
Yeah.
And just to pick up on another point, I think the wisdom of the older people and all of that, most of my clients today are securing roles through networking, rightly or wrongly, because we know we have come out of a difficult market. We know that there's been a lot of people looking for a little while through having been made redundant, and might have taken them a little bit of time to secure the role. But a lot of people have done it through networking, certainly in Ireland and the UK, just
Yeah.
based on evidence that I've been hearing through clients. So it is, get out there, be social. It's always nice to meet other people. You'll always learn something anyway, but also you never know who might know about a role that you could be perfect for, and they might put you in touch with somebody who knows somebody who can get you in for an interview.
Exactly. And
rightly.
also in saying that as well, just to finish on that, is taking these nugget 5 minutes of compassion every day. Like again, these are game changers, for people. So 5 minutes of, what really makes me feel alive, so even if you're not in the mood, just what makes me feel alive.
Mm.
Taking 5 minutes every day. It could be like having a cup of coffee, having a cup of tea, reading an inspirational text, reading a poem, tending to something, planting something, what really makes me feel alive. And as soon as you begin to connect with that as well, you connect with your heart space, you connect with all living things, you become from feeling, because being made redundant can, from what I've been told and experienced, can be quite isolating. You can feel quite isolated because you feel it's you, it is you, all those feelings are real. So when you begin to create that space and go outwards, creating those spaces of compassion for yourself, and even that compassion towards other people as well, who've been through a similar situation, everything changes.
For sure. Thank you so much. So, believe it or not, our time is up. So, I might just ask you, is there something else you would like to put in the mix? If you were to sum up or add another nugget of wisdom before we finish up, what advice would you offer people?
Yeah, the number one piece of advice would be based on experience and dealing with a lot of people is, if you use the metaphor of the sea, when the waves are really choppy, that is the time to still find that space in either mindfulness, going for your mindful walk. The number one thing your brain will want to do is reach for a distraction, and everything is pulling you away from that place of being centered. So you will find, where is my door into that room of where I find my balance and my centered space. It doesn't mean that you're there all day, but
Right.
as soon as you find it, keep coming back. The waves seem really choppy right now, but there will become that space of nearly going beneath, and that beautiful clear space so whatever brings you to that space, practice it every day. It's like training a new muscle. It's incremental. Don't judge your progress, but just do it. Do the work for yourself every day.
Absolutely love it. Tara, thank you so much for your time and your absolute nuggets of wisdom. So appreciated this morning.
Thank you. Thanks
Take
for
care.